Hey there, everyone. Today, we're diving into some new insights on retirement spending that can change how you approach your retirement plan. Welcome back to the Think Retirement channel. For those that are new, I'm Jonathan Rankin, and for almost 20 years now, I've been helping people plan and execute their retirement goals to ensure that they live a comfortable and secure retirement. In this video, I'm going to share with you 3 new retirement spending surprises and how they can impact the way that you view your retirement plan. Now, preparing for a financially successful retirement is all about strategic planning. Think of it as navigating the different stages of your financial journey. Now, while most of us know the basics, save as much as you can while you're working, things get a little bit more complex when you hit that next chapter and actually start spending down your retirement savings. Now, research has shown that it might be time to start rethinking some of the retirement principles that many people have focused on for decades. You've probably heard of the classic rules of thumb like the 4% rule and the idea of aiming for 70 to 80% of your pre-retirement salary. Now, these guidelines have been staples for years, but JP Morgan's latest research suggests that it might be time to rethink these strategies. But first, let's break down these real quick if you weren't familiar with them. Now, the 4% rule, this suggests that you can withdraw 4% from your retirement savings annually, adjusting for inflation, to keep your income steady without running out of money too soon. The income replacement rate, this rule recommends aiming to live on 70 to 80% of your pre-retirement salary, assuming that your spending needs will be lower. But here's the thing, JP Morgan's research uncovered 3 retirement spending trends that challenge these traditional approaches. Now, the first trend is that your spending habits actually change throughout your life. They call it the lifetime spending curve. Now, the second is that there's often a spike in spending when you first retire, which they call the retirement spending surge. And the last trend they uncovered was how your spending can actually fluctuate significantly during retirement, which they call spending volatility. Now let's break down these trends, starting with the spending curve. Now, data shows a clear spending curve over a lifetime. Now, here's what they found. In the early years of adulthood, between 20 and 40 years old, spending steadily climbs, which makes sense because earnings are usually increasing. People are starting to buy houses, have kids, all of those things that come at an increase in cost. Now, spending peaks as people enter their late 40s into their 50s, and then as people hit their 60s, spending starts to generally decrease. On the surface, you might think to yourself, well, of course, that's the case. Most likely kids are out of the house and they're out of college, houses are getting close to being paid off, and most major purchases are behind you. But here's why this is important, because when you're planning for your retirement, most people are focusing on replacing their current income, which is likely at its highest level that it's been at any point up until this point. And spending is likely to be going down. But it's not just about how much you spend, it's about what you spend money on. For instance, healthcare costs rise as you age, while the cost of other expenses drop. This means that traditional inflation models like CPI, which assume a constant basket of goods, might not be accurate. Typically, retirement models adjust spending for inflation using CPI. But here's the catch. See, CPI assumes that retirees buy the same goods at 75 and 85 and 95 as they did at age 65, which just isn't the case. Older retirees spend way more on healthcare and less on everything else. Now, on top of that, CPI is based on urban consumers of all ages, not retirees specifically. There's a big difference between the spending habits of a 25-year-old and a 75-year-old. All this is to say that relying on these broad CPI numbers can give a misleading picture of how much income you actually need to maintain your lifestyle over time. JP Morgan's analysis shows that the real change in spending from ages 65 to 95 is way lower than the 3% long-term CPI that average planners typically rely on. In fact, it's about 1/3 lower. Now, why this matters is because overestimating inflation can lead to bad advice and less than ideal retirement outcomes, like delaying retirement or underspending when you're healthier. For example, if a financial model is telling you that you're going to be spending about 20% more than you're actually going to be spending in real life, most people would likely delay retirement just to make sure they had enough, or they would significantly cut back on what they would like to spend money on. Now, we need a dynamic approach that looks at real spending patterns for better planning. Now, the next retirement spending trend that they uncovered was the spending surge. They took a close look at household spending around the retirement transition period. So they looked at 2 years before and 3 years after retirement. Their data shows a significant spike in spending that peaks right at retirement and gradually decreases over the next 3 years. This surge is often due to increased travel, relocation, or just lifestyle changes. Here's why this is important. Spending in retirement is a gradual transition. The post-retirement spending doesn't drop immediately, like most people think. There's a transition period that should be factored into your withdrawal plan. Here's where it gets interesting. Not every household experiences a spending surge in retirement at the same time or the same way. The research shows that partially retired households are more likely to see this surge. What they found out was that they analyzed being fully retired versus partially retired. They looked at income streams, not just self-reported retirement status. The fully retired households switched from work income to full retirement income, while partially retired households still had some employment income, but also drew 20% or more of their income from Social Security, pensions, or annuities. And one of the questions that I get quite often is, when do most people retire? Now we actually have some data that shows about 59% of fully retired households made the transition between ages 60 and 64, and 41% transitioned between 65 and 69. For partially retired households, it was 49% between 60 and 64, and 51% between 65 and 69, indicating they often delayed retirement for financial reasons. And for those experiencing a spending surge, most of the increased spending went to healthcare, apparel, and food and beverages. Now, the spending surge trend highlights why it's even more important during this stage to keep an eye on investment risk leading up to and during retirement. See, stocks can help fight inflation, but too much exposure, especially during volatile markets, can deplete your portfolio quickly, especially with a spending surge. Now, imagine if you retired in 1966 with a 5% withdrawal rate, and you adjusted that withdrawal every single year by 3% inflation. Even with an average annual return of 9.7% over that 30-year period, market volatility in the first 9 years could have wiped out your entire savings if you had a 30% spending surge in the first 3 years of your retirement. Your portfolio could be fully depleted by age 91 instead of lasting until age 95. Now, the last retirement spending trend that they uncovered was spending volatility. The research showed a wide variation in spending amongst retirees, especially early on. Nearly 80% of retirees experienced substantial changes in retirement spending. 24% of retirees experienced significant spending changes, meaning that their spending changed by at least 20%. Some increased their spending by a lot, and some cut their spending quite a bit. 56% of people saw temporary shifts up or down. The research went on to prove that retirement spending isn't this static lower rate like the old school income replacement rate rule of thumb would suggest. Even after the initial years, spending volatility can persist, and this happens especially in the 70 to 80-year-old age group. Now, to wrap all of this up, the findings underscore the importance of reassessing your investment risk exposure as you near and enter retirement. It's crucial to develop solutions that account for the wide range of potential spending behaviors, creating realistic strategies that are tailored to your individual needs. Having emergency reserves is essential to cushion against unexpected expenses, which tend to increase with age. On top of that, flexibility in your retirement plan is also key to managing the risk associated with spending volatility and market changes. Understanding these 3 new retirement spending surprises can significantly influence your retirement planning. Recognizing the lifetime spending curve, the spending surge at retirement, and the ongoing spending volatility will help you better prepare and optimize your retirement strategy. Now, if you need help reassessing your retirement plan to account for these new trends, then use the link in the description below to schedule some time with a member of our team. And lastly, if you're planning on a retirement before Medicare kicks in and you've wondered what you should be doing to bridge the healthcare gap, make sure you check out this video coming next where I break everything down for you. I'll see you there.